This is Obal, and this is my Revenant guide for PVE. Revenants are pretty OP. The only drawback of them is it's going to take quite a bit of time to get everything unlocked. So I'm going to go over what you can run early on when you're still trying to unlock things. Hopefully you have lots of Tombs of Knowledge and scrolls to get to 80 immediately. And what you will ultimately want to be running once you get 80 and have all your stuff unlocked. So here's the DPS chart for Revenant in a group setting with all the buffs. Revenant can dish out quite a bit of DPS. I added a super difficult rotation of just pressing 1 to show how OP sword auto is. You do 15k by just pressing 1 and doing nothing but that. You can see that Shira Malix is pretty much top DPS. Problem is that it lacks the utility and you won't be getting all the might that you would normally get because you won't get boons during Malix on your own, and it has a lot less utility. So in general, I'd say use Clint instead. Could be good though if you're pushing for records and boons aren't really an issue. You will want to use Malix during Time Warp for short fights though, since you can keep the passive nature up to give everybody else 50% more quickness during Time Warp and have the stance up as well. You can see that Scholar is clearly the best choice for a group. I'd say the next best choice is Strength. People think Rage is good, but not really since you're going to cap out on Fury anyway, and it's a trivial amount worse DPS than Strength. With people not pre-stacking Might, Pugs, people going down and such, it's less likely they're going to cap out on Might. It also excels in a solo setting. If you do use it for groups, I would just use the Golden Fried Dumpling food. It's not going to make that much of a difference. Here's the DPS that you would do for Trash. It's pretty similar since pretty much everything that you do is going to cleave. Here's DPS in a solo setting. You can see that Strength runes are pretty close to Scholar, and this is assuming Scholar is always going to be up, which it's not going to be. So Strength make a great choice for soloing. You'll want to use the Golden Fried Dumplings as the power food, regardless of what rune set you are using for solo. If you're wondering why I'm in PvP, it's because I don't have Herald unlocked, nowhere near it. But the build is Devastation, Invocation, Herald, and Devastation you get a chance to do Vuln on attack. Your auto attack does quite a bit of Vuln too, so Revenants are pretty good for Vuln. You want Vicious Lacerations, gets 10% damage multiplier pretty quickly while you have Sword, and you should pretty much always be using Sword. You get more damage when targets have Vuln, which they should always have it if you're attacking with Sword. Assassin's Presence, you get 150 more ferocity for everybody in your group. You get some more health back when you attack if they have Vuln. And you want Swift Termination. When targets are below 50%, you get 20% more damage. DPS calcs that I showed you don't even consider this trait. So yeah, that's even more OP than you would think. And the other trait line is Invocation. You gain Fury when you activate a legend. Pick Fierce Infusion. When you heal, you get even more Fury. You should pretty much be capping out on Fury though. So if conditions are a problem, you want Cleansing Channel instead. Get more damage while you have Fury, and there's really no reason why you shouldn't have it. Invigorating Flow. Heal yourself whenever you use something that costs energy. Empty Vessel. You break stun when you switch a legend, which can be pretty useful at times. Rolling Mist. You get double the effect of Fury. So if you have Fury, which you should, you'll get 40% instead of 20. For Herald, you'll get access to the Facet of Nature, 50% boon duration for everybody. Pretty OP. You want to pick Hardening Persistence, you get 40% toughness for each point of upkeep you have. However, you'll want to not have this on for raids and some fractal content if you want somebody else to get the aggro. If you have it on, people will probably get pretty mad at you, so you want to pick Radiant Revival instead, which converts all damage to healing. For people that are down, this is going to be really good for raids to get people back up and not die yourself. You'll get 25% endurance regeneration pretty much all the time since you should always have an upkeep skill active. You get Might for each boon that you apply to everybody in the group. There is a 1 second cooldown, so It's not as OP as Phallic Strength or something. And this is where Malix really loses out since you don't get boons during it like you do for Shiro and Glint. You would get it for when you're using Unrelenting Assault, but that's about it. And you get 15% boon duration, and you get 2% damage per boon. And just from you doing boons yourself, you get 4. And that's really going to add up with other people doing other boons too. Another thing Revenants do pretty well is blind spam hard trash, so if you really need this and nobody else in your group can provide it, you want to drop Invocation since it's going to add the least amount of DPS in your build. You want to take Salvation. You get blind from hitting foes, but that's a 20-second cooldown. The real thing that you would want is Blinding Truth. Blinds foes when you use a healing skill. So you pretty much put the tablet down, and then you just keep spamming move the tablet directly on where your line of sight. And it's 2-second recharge, and you could just spam it. And yeah, every time you hit it, you get a blind, so it's blinding everything around you every 2 seconds. Not really much else appealing in this line though. I guess you can just go for the Kandian dodge roll, removable at everybody, and some more healing power. For gear, yeah, I'm aware my gear looks pretty gross. I got it from my Guardian, still has the Dragon Hunter stink on it. For gear, you want all Berserker gear, Scholar runes, and Strength runes wouldn't be a bad choice either. Especially if you're soloing, you could see the advantages, disadvantages, and DPS charts in the beginning of the video. You want power infusions. I would have one toughness ring in case you want to grab aggro or something. Like in fractals, you won't always have hardening persistence on, and the target might move to something else. Valkyrie gear's not a bad choice if you want a couple pieces of it. It's not going to hurt you too bad since you have such a high chance to crit. The boon duration gear, it's not really worth it. And for weapons, you'll want pretty much all of them, I'd say. You mainly want sword axe. Offhand sword would be good on swap for the block. For day you want air and force. And night you want night and force. You also want slang if you really want to do stuff like dungeons and get those amazing rewards. For consumables, seaweed salad would be the best if you're really pushing for records or something. If not, bowls of sweet and spicy butternut squash soup. If you're doing solo content or you have strength runes on, fried golden dumplings instead. For utility, you want slaying potions if it applies to everything you're fighting. If not, sharpening stones, the bountiful ones. If you want to buy them, go ahead. They are the best, 100 power and 10% boon duration. Great for Revenant. Scale Venom would be good for fractals too, for things that slaying wouldn't be good for. For weapon skills, Sword Auto is really OP, has lots of damage and vuln, so you want to do only this in Shiro. Precision Strike, if you really need chill, go ahead and use it, or if you want to run down the energy in Glint and you don't have anything else to use, go ahead and use it there. Unrelenting Assault is a slight DPS gain outside of Shiro, so you want to use that in Glint and Malix. Especially good in solo or low might settings because it does give you might. Frigid Blitz is not really a DPS gain, you just want to use it in Glint to run out the energy. Temporal Rift is a loss, so you want to use it only for break bars. Offhand Sword, Duelist Preparation is a great block, so that's mainly why you want to run Sword Axe, Sword. So you have a block on swap. Grasping Shadow, you should only really use it for break bars as well. If you're taking aggro or something in fractals, or you want to use Sword Shield, so you have 2 blocks. Crystal Hibernation is a pretty OP block. You can use this if you really want the heal prot. Not that great. Your ranged weapons, hammer, you want to use Coalescence of Rune as much as possible. It's pretty good damage. your phase smash and drop the hammer or blast. So this has the most blast on it, so it's your might stacking weapon before combat. And Field of the Mist, if you need projectile defense, go ahead and use that. And Staff, Surge of the Mist is pretty OP when it comes to break bars, but you just don't really want to get stuck in combat with a staff because it's not very powerful. All Mace is really good for is making a fire field before a fight. If nobody else wants to, use Searing Fissure, and then Echoing Eruption to blast it. Your utility is Facet of Nature, 50% boon duration to everybody, which is pretty OP, especially if people use Time Warp, Feel My Wrath. It's a lot of quickness for everybody. Big damage increase, so you want to have it up as much as possible, which means you want to have it up in Glint and Malix when you use it, and you want to run out all of your energy to force the cooldown of it, so you don't have the cooldown of one with nature instead, just 25 seconds. You'll do that, run out your energy before swapping back to Shiro. For Glint, you want to use Facet of Darkness, gives you Fury. You don't want to activate it, it's one blind, not worth not having the Fury for your group. Facet of Elements give you Swiftness. You pretty much have perma quickness running around. You should start out in Glint anyway, just because the pre-stack Fury and Swiftness. You do want to use Elemental Blast though. It's a pretty big DPS gain. You want to use it when your energy is around 4% left, so you can run out the energy and Glint quicker. And Facet of Strength, you want to use this. Gives you might, everybody else. Burst of Strength is pretty good at the start of a fight. It's 20 vuln right off the start. So if your group can't get capped out on vuln at all, or it's going to take a while, it's probably worth using that. Facet of Light, get regen. You can have all of these, every facet but Prot active, and that will help run out your energy, along with Unrelenting and Frigid. And you want to use this as a heal when you're expecting to take a pretty decent amount of damage. You also want to use it as a block too, because it's 4 seconds where you won't get hit. And Facet of Chaos, you can't use it if you have one Facet of Nature, Darkness, and Strength active, which you really want them to be active. And I would only really use this if you need to use Chaotic Release for the break bar. It's not a DPS gain, it's actually a loss. Your other legend should mostly be Shiro. You want to use Enchanted Daggers as a heal, but you'll also want to use it for DPS because it is quite a big DPS gain. So use it as much as possible. Possible odds is pretty much the whole reason why you brought Shiro, because it's really OP DPS. This isn't really worth it since it has such a high energy cost, and you have 25% endurance regen anyway. Shouldn't need it. Phase Transversal, it's good for trash running quickly, as well as running cliffside seals. Jade Wind is really good for break bars, but it's basically that or impossible odds, so you should only really need it to use it if you really need to. And same thing for hard trash, you can use it if a wipe is imminent, and it might help you, but again, you'll lose impossible odds. For Malix, you want to use Embrace the Darkness, as well as Facet of Nature. It's great because you can have both. You can also use Banish Enchantment to get rid of boons on foes. If you need projectile defense, use Centaur Stance, use the tablet, use Protective Solace. You can also turn it off and on, which is pretty nice. Because if you're in combat and you don't need it for a few seconds, you can turn it off and gain more energy so you can use it for longer. You can also command it to move the tablet and move where you want the projectile defense to be. You don't want to use Fast of Nature during Centaur stance though, because that will pretty much destroy your energy pretty quickly. And another reason why you would take Centaur stance is for blind spam. When you have the trait Salvation, it's basically just keep moving the tablet where you're fighting. Every time you move it, it'll blind everything around you with the trait on. You want to use Dwarf stance for stability, inspiring reinforcement. Hopefully other classes will bring stability though, so you don't have to waste legend. You want Fast of Nature active while you're in Dwarf stance, as well as Vengeful Hammer. Soothing Stone, it removes 3 conditions, so that is pretty nice. If you really, Kandis are really a problem, you can use Dwarf stance as well. Ray the Great Dwarf could be a pretty good niche skill for running hard trash and such. So that's about it for my guide. It's a little longer than I'd hoped, but it is a new class, so hope you got a lot out of it and helped you out. I have DPS rotations after this, so I'll see you next time.
I demand that you release me. Ultimate power! I have returned to fight at your side. We must rise and return to the fight!